Hi. Guess what?
What if I told you?
What if I told you? Oh, I love that. I should start using Sean's. What if I told you? Did you get enough Southern California hockey talk on Tuesday when we had the Anaheim Ducks? Yes, Alexis and Steve. I didn't.
Go back to the beach.
I wouldn't mind going back to that weather, especially now. So we're going to have the other half of Southern California NHL as we talk about the LA Kings today. Eric Stevens from The Athletic, Zach Dooley from the Kings will be joining us to talk about the other 31, the Kings, right now on DLS.
Get it ready, boys.
Hi, everyone. This is Thursday. Today is Thursday, August 14th. This is the DLS Stars podcast alongside Sam Nessler and our producer, Elijah Smith. I'm Owen Newkirk. We are excited to continue our other 31 summer series focusing on the LA Kings. It's not the Anaheim Ducks today, but they have somebody that's played for the Ducks for a long time now on their roster. We'll get into that. We're going to talk to Zach Dooley from the LA Kings, a Kings insider, a little bit later. But first, a man who has known a lot about hockey in both Anaheim and LA from The Athletic. Please welcome their hockey writer, Eric Stevens, to the show. Hi, Eric.
Hey, guys. How you doing today?
We're doing great, although when we had Steve Carroll and Alexis Downey from the Ducks on earlier this week, we had to remember that Southern California weather isn't Dallas in the summertime, because Steve was talking about spilling hot tea on himself, and it was mentally almost incomprehensible for us in Dallas.
Can't even look at hot tea right
Why
now.
would you be drinking hot tea in August? Maybe that's crazy in California too, but especially in Dallas.
Exactly. It should be iced tea like, round the clock, correct?
Completely. Now,
sweet tea especially.
If
Sweet
you're a
tea.
Southerner, sweet tea, it's a little much for me. I go with the unsweet, and I get looks all the time, right?
Fair
So
enough.
it happens. All right, let's talk about the Kings. And we're thrilled that you came on today because you've covered both for a while. So you have a real good finger on the pulse of both the Ducks and the Kings. But I guess our kind of lead, and I'm not trying to trash the Kings because I actually picked them to make it to the conference final when we did our playoff picks last year. I thought we were going to see Kings and Stars, and it almost happened, and then it didn't. So we'll get into the details of it, but what the heck happened again to the Oilers in the first round? This team has just plagued the Kings for the last 4 years.
Yeah, you know what, Owen? I think last year is the one that really stings and lingers and really is the most painful to. You can go through it from the fan base to the entire organization, and some change has resulted from that. I mean that it the thing the thing that made it so damaging was that this year seemed like it was really lined up for them to finally take down the Oilers and advance. If you recall, Edmonton had they were sort of a damaged club. A bunch of their guys, they were either resting them or, in the case of players like Trent Frederick and Evander Kane, depth players that you need in the playoffs, they were just kind of getting up to speed, so to speak. Whereas the Kings were healthy, they for the first time in this 4-year run, they actually had home ice advantage, something that in the first two games they they used to their advantage and won those. And so it really was lined up for them, to advance this year. And clearly there were some pivotal moments in that series that eventually led to their downfall. Certainly some questionable moves by Jim Hiller behind the bench.
Game 3.
That yeah, it's certainly. And what the funny thing about those, I mean, there were in my mind really two main things. Obviously, there was the goaltending challenge there, which I had thought at that time was a questionable move. I mean, why would you want to risk, especially if it's late in the third period, you're holding on to a one goal lead. Yes, I mean, sure, they tied it, but they had been playing so well in the series, literally up to that point, and even in that game 3 too. I mean, they had taken a lead. They were playing well, and why would you give a team like the Oilers, with the personnel that they have, with the superstars that they have, a shot at a power play late in the third period? So that obviously backfired. But I think really bigger than that, because those, yes, it's a decision. They either work for you, they work. It works against you. What I thought really was, Jim Hiller's, greatest mistake in that series was basically limiting his roster to just, playing three forward lines, and essentially four and a half defensemen. And eventually, the Oilers who had gotten healthy, they were getting healthy throughout that series. They used that to their advantage. They were deeper than the Kings, and that shouldn't have been the case, because the Kings are built to be a deep club. As you guys know, I mean, the Stars are built that way. In fact, I've always thought the Stars were a better version of the Kings, but still built to be deep. Built to run four lines, built to use everyone on their roster, wear teams down that way. He took away their greatest strength, in my opinion, or one of their greatest strengths. Now maybe that showed that they didn't really have a fourth line, but if you can't trust all the guys on your club at that stage, then what are you doing there? What's that's it just ran counter to what they had done, essentially all year, and who they are. And it showed eventually, as obviously, the Oilers tied it up in or they tied the series in that game 4. Another missed opportunity. Everybody looks at the failed clear by Quentin Byfield, and obviously they tied the game late and sent it into overtime. But game 5, they came back to LA and they had nothing. That's where the series turned. That's where they essentially lost it. In my opinion, they lost the series at that point in those 2 games in Edmonton.
When you look at it, because you're more embedded with the Kings than we are, and we're watching at it sort of as outsiders. The Luds isn't on the show today, but I remember having the conversation after, it might have been game 3 or game 4, going, why is LA sitting back? Because when you guys against the Oilers would go forward, when that team was playing, you saw it. They jumped out to leads. They took it to them. Edmonton was, especially the first 2 games when Skinner was in that, looked awful, right? Didn't look anywhere near the confidence that you saw against the Stars in the conference final again. So we both have the Oilers. We have Oilers baggage on both the Stars and the Kings side, but it just felt like as LA would get leads in that series, the most recent one against Edmonton, that they would kind of like almost allow the Oilers to come at them. And I know that's sort of maybe reducing what is a very talented top end of the Oilers group. We've seen it ourselves in Dallas, but there were times, and I don't know if you think this is a coaching thing or if it's just what happened in the series. It felt like the Kings were playing to not lose at times, even though they had the lead.
You know what? What's the common saying, especially, they're in the land of Big D, whatsoever, when you play prevent defense.
Yep.
It often prevents you from winning. You know what? And I think it's a combination of obviously tactical errors in that way. But you know what? Some of it is human nature. Some of it, when you're going up against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, I mean, these are 2 players that, I mean, they are light years ahead of 90 to 95% of the entire NHL. And you're, you almost have to fight that response to not, to sit back,
Yeah.
to protect, and I get what you're saying, exactly. When I watch games and I see teams, do that, it's like, especially against them, you have to go at them. You've got to make them play defense. You've got to make, you've got to make the Oilers, play in their own end. And yes, I mean, they can break out, of their own end like no other team, but you still have to make them do it. And so, it's fighting that, it's not only, a part of it is really just fighting that urge. I mean, when I talk to, the defensemen, whether, within the teams that I cover, or others that I, come across the league whatsoever, it's easy to say, oh yeah, push forward, play out and whatsoever, but you sort of your natural tendency against players of that caliber, of the highest caliber, your natural tendency is to back up, and you have to, it's sort of an urge that you have to fight against. It's easier said than done, but yeah, that was another one of those things that really, led to the downfall. The fact that they went away from what was making them successful in that series, so particularly in that early part of that series.
For Thomas Harley saying in the Western Conference Final multiple times that every time McDavid would start coming at him, he's like, I need to tell myself to attack him. I can't sit back. And then when he would sit back, McDavid would still beat him to the outside.
Yeah.
So there's not really a winning against him, but every team tries to do it a different way. But Eric, you mentioned the home ice advantage. For most teams, that's important, right? Pete DeBoer always talked about Game 7 is when that really becomes important. For a team that is 17, 19, and 5 on the road and 31, 6, and 4 at home, it's very important. And one of the more frustrating parts for us with not just Pete DeBoer, coaches in history always do it, is we ask about trends. Why are you guys so good at home? Why is your power play elite at home and terrible on the road? And the answer we always got was, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. And I don't really believe that. So I'm curious if you have a better answer to that. Why was LA so much different at home than they were on the road?
You know what? I would love to give you a scientific answer, filled with data and, things that you can certainly point to, to that. I'm actually sort of in the believer of, I think it was just one of those things, one of those years, because otherwise it would happen every single year. If a team is, so good at home, and there was, there was such an home ice in advance, this would happen more often than not.
Right.
And in this sport, home ice advantage just isn't as big as if you're, in the NBA, NFL probably especially. But I think I think they just had a mojo about them where they just played, not carefree, but it was just something that they built and fed off all year. And yeah, I know that's not a great scientific answer, but I am a believer in that. I think if you have something successful that's going, you build on that. It's something that they fed into. They fed up. The crowds were into the games after a while. And when you think of LA crowds, you think of they're sort of passive and not whatsoever. Well, the fan base was aware of their success at home, and so it was sort of a symbiotic relationship. They sort of fed off of each other, and it was a thing that the Kings definitely embraced. And by the time the spring came, and the fact that they had, you knew that there was going to be a collision course. It was going to happen. You knew this was going to happen for months. So it really became a rallying point, a driving thing. Again, this was the first time that they had finally gained home ice advantage against the Oilers in these annual playoff series that they've had. So, yeah, I wish I could have a better explanation for you. Yeah, I don't think that they were such a bad team on the road or whatnot, but clearly, the numbers prove it. They were just much better at home. In just about every facet, of the game, and I think it's just a thing where they really fed off of that, and it became something that sort of became a season long rallying point.
A lot more with Eric Stevens from The Athletic in just a moment. Don't go anywhere because this is the whole Kings Day show, but we'll talk to Eric more next here on DLLS.
Me?
You first.
Just thought I'd ask. Finances can be messy and confusing, as we know, but Monarch Money acts like your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control so you can stop just earning and start growing. It's more than just your average budgeting app. Monarch Money is a complete financial command center for everything you have. That's your accounts, your investments, your goals, everything right there for you. So it's simple. You can pick and choose your goals, and you can customize it the way you want. Don't just manage your money. Start building wealth with 50% off your first year for our listeners. Without a clear financial picture, these financial dreams can feel out of reach, but Monarch Money makes managing your money simple, even for the busiest of lives, like people who maybe play in the NHL. Track your spending, saving, and investments effortlessly so you can focus on what matters most, making your biggest life goals a reality. The financial tool that people actually love. You can join over 1 million households. Wall Street Journal's best budgeting app of 2025 with over 30,000 five-star reviews. Is that enough? You guys ready to sign up? Get control of your overall finances with Monarch Money. Use code DLLS at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code DLLS.
All right, Sam, thanks very much. Let's talk about branded bills. Whether you need snapbacks, truckers, fitteds, beanies, or tees, Branded Bills has you covered with performance and style. Looking for some gear to make your brand stand apart from the crowd? Well, Branded Bills has you covered with the best custom headwear. Start your order, and their dedicated team will help you create the exact custom apparel that you need. They have a partnership with 40 colleges as part of their campus collection, including such schools as Texas, Texas Tech, and TCU. So head to brandedbills.com, use the code BBDLLS. Again, that's BBDLLS for 15% off your first order. All right, we bring Eric back on the screen. Eric, you mentioned this right off the top of the show today. Because of, as you said, this one was probably the most gut-wrenching loss of the 4 straight years you've lost to the Oilers. I keep saying you, the proverbial you of the Kings. They made changes. Do you think that 8 years under Rob Blake ended because of that four loss sequence, and this one in particular, and going to Ken Holland in May?
Partly, but I sort of felt, over the course of last year, I kind of was wondering and thinking and in talking to even people around the organization. I think there was a feeling that there was going to be a separation, anyway, unless say maybe the Kings did go on a long run. Say maybe if they did get to the Stanley Cup final. Rob Blake was entering his, he's basically in the final year of his contract. There had been no talks to extend it. Rob wasn't necessarily one that where he, had the media around him all the time or whatsoever. But he had essentially said in March that there wasn't any further talks or and whatsoever. And so I think the writing was even on the wall. In fact, I even kind of wondered too if Rob, partly himself was ready to step away. But certainly, with the things that happened, with obviously how the playoffs, turned out, and whatsoever, I think it was natural. I think it was something that was sort of a fait accompli, in terms of a changeover. So yeah, now they've got Ken Holland on board here, and make no mistake, this is a club. They're in win now mode. They haven't won enough, but that's the path they chose, and Ken Holland is here. He as he's shown in his moves, so far, this is not a club that's going to be entering in some sort of retool or rebuilding stage or whatsoever. They're still trying to make a push and trying to finally break through. But now, obviously, they've made some changes and they've got a little different cast of characters around the core players that they have.
Well, I'm sure it's not been lost on anyone around Los Angeles that if you can't beat the Oilers, you go hire their ex-general manager and see if you can get a player or two.
Stars had a similar strategy.
Yeah, Stars hired Glenn Gullitson. So both of us are trying to figure out how to get past the Oil by using some of their personnel. Let's talk about Corey Perry, though, for a second. Before we get into all the other summer signings, in which there are quite a few with Ken Holland, you, especially because you covered the Ducks for so long as well, you know how important Corey Perry is to Anaheim. If it was directly from the Ducks to the Kings, I feel like this would be a major uproar. But he's played for, of course, the Stars, and he played against the Ducks in Anaheim with Tampa and in Edmonton. So it's not like this is the first time he's going back to Orange County as a visiting guy, but this is the King. So is there still going to be a little bit of rankling of Ducks feathers, so to speak, because he's playing on the other side of the 405 rivalry?
You know what? When he signed with the Kings, it was certainly a juicy story and a juicy angle to run with. And in what I wrote at that time, it was wondering, are Dutch fans going to, just howl seeing Corey Perry in the Kings jersey? Are Kings fans going to howl when seeing Corey Perry in a Kings jersey? I think there's an element of both. But as you know, I mean, once a player gets on your team side, you tend you tend to forget about, or you tend to not think about all the times that he's hurt your club as an opposing player whatsoever. To answer your question. Excuse me. To answer your question, I think it's, yes, you're right. There has been time since, and if you remember, the Ducks bought him out. I mean, to start sort of this, this second act of his career where he's, moved from team to team to team and try to chase for that second cup here. That was spurred on by Anaheim buying him out. At that time, I think it was 6-7 years ago now. Yeah, so I think maybe that's dimmed it so, but I mean, it's, and maybe Corey Perry doesn't quite have, I guess you could say the same, this isn't Hart Trophy Corey Perry. This is
right.
In 2011. This is in prime.
But amazingly,
Corey
at 40,
Perry, even though
he's still pretty darn effective, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. And I tell you what, there will be booing, of him in Anaheim, not just in seeing him in a King's sweater, but if he's sort of accidentally on purpose, falling on top of Lucas Dostal in the crease there.
He'll definitely do that at least once or twice.
That's gonna happen, and so but you know what, I like it because I think it's gonna add some spice to what's called the freeway face-off here. You've got obviously the Kings where they are. You've got an Anaheim team that certainly feels like they are on the rise. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been a whole lot of juice to this rivalry, really. Ever since the mid 2010s, or especially the playoff series that they had. So. Yeah, I think it's going to take some time. I think it's going to take some time for Kings fans to still wrap their heads around Corey Perry on their club. But if he's doing damage around the net whatsoever, I do think that he will win over most of them. And as far as Anaheim fans, I see that I think he's going to wear number 10 for LA. I think that might rankle them more than, say, if he had chosen another number like number 94 or something else. I think maybe that'll. That might stir up some memories that they don't want to deal with. But to me, I think this is going to really add some real much needed juice to what could be and what is to some extent a great rivalry here in SoCal.
The good news, you mentioned that the Kings haven't won enough with the first round exits. Now you're guaranteed to lose in the Stanley Cup final with Corey Perry. So that's a positive outlook.
For that, right?
It's a positive outlook on it, right?
I think most fans would take that. I mean, I know we're sort of in this all or nothing mindset as a sporting culture in some ways, but I think that most Kings fans would take a run to the Stanley Cup final, even if it were to be in defeat.
Well, Eric, one interesting signing this summer was Cody Ceci, which to me was a little surprising when I saw the contract. Since nothing against what he did, he was a good role player here, helped on the penalty kill, but he was more of a bottom pairing, maybe second pairing kind of guy. To see him get 4 years, I think $4.5 million. What made that a good move, or if it's not, in your opinion, what made it a not so good move?
Well, you know what? There's some ways to look at it. Well, first off, they had to have some sort of response ready for losing Vladislav Gavrikov, which was becoming very apparent. I think in the days, leading up to it, it seemed to be much apparent that he was going to test free agency, and ultimately he did leave and head back east to New York. Um, you're right. Cody Ceci, you have to look at Cody Ceci for what he does and what he can bring you, and not necessarily look at the contract, because we're now in an age with a rising cap where you're going to have to pay a little bit maybe more for talent than you expect, and we don't know if there were, say, other suitors that the Kings had to outbid for him. And I know that sounds a little weird in saying that, but look, I mean, we know that he's obviously a big guy. He's a right hand shot, and we know that right hand defensemen are worth their weight in gold. Seemingly in today's NHL, and I think you have to look at him too. In a best case scenario, Cody Ceci is going to be playing. He's going to be on their third defense pairing, with Drew Doughty, certainly, playing in the top line spot, and Brandt Clark, who you would think will have a much more expanded role, even further than last year, where he did play more. But I think he's going to, I think they're really counting on him to take a real major step forward this year. So, best case scenario, Cody Ceci is going to be on your third pairing. Does he make their defense any better? I think the Kings system has been so geared toward preventing goals. It's a goalie friendly system, and Dorsey Kemper's the latest beneficiary of it. That I think that maybe Cody can be a better fit than most people realize. Yeah, I do realize that a lot of people were down on the signing, down on the money that maybe he's getting, maybe more down on the term. I think I'm more questionable about the amount of term that he got with 4 years as opposed to the dollars involved. But if he's placed, if he's right in the right spot, if he's a 6, then I think they'll be able to manage that, pretty well, providing that the top 4 on the Kings defense are healthy and are playing well. If you're asking him to play, 19, 20, 21, 22 minutes, then I think you're heading down, maybe a potentially bad path here. Which you saw in some of the other teams where he's played, like say San Jose, where essentially he was playing there to up his trade value, and as you guys know, the Stars jumped on that. But if you're playing him above what he, if you're incorrectly slotting him, then I think that's a bad path to go down. But if he's on your third pair, handling 16, 18 minutes, doing some PK, just generally trying to make it, tough for, say more, bottom, opponents, depth players to score, then I think he should do fine.
Eric, amazingly, we're almost out of time. It's gone by so quickly, and I didn't even get to ask you about Quentin Byfield or
million of them.
Doughty and Kopitar defying their ages, or Kemper's play in net. But we'll ask you one final thing we've been asking every one of our summer series guests is, and this is not about this team.
Well, to sum it up, and next time, just tell me to stop talking.
No, you're fine.
Yeah. No, you know what? The Stars have long impressed me. And in fact, in some ways, I'm just as surprised as you guys. I mean, I think there's a couple of those, these recent seasons, I've had them going to the Cup final, if not win it. So I'm just as surprised that they haven't been able to make that last step. Like I said, the depth, they've got some great. The way Jim Nill has been able to manage this, been able to keep them consistently competitive while also working in, players like Wyatt Johnston, Maverick Bork. Obviously, they had to use Logan Stankoven in order to get Mikko Rantanen. The fact that he's been able to do both and not bottom out like other teams have done, I think it's very impressive. I think that they could probably use a little more grit in their game, and people have different opinions about grit or whatsoever. But as we've seen, the playoffs is just a different animal. It's a different game than the regular season. It just is, and so I think they do need a little bit more of that element, to them. Could they maybe use a little more, offense down the lineup? Perhaps, that's what's also you need in the postseason as well, especially when your Stars, kind of start to run dry at different periods of it. But it's a team that's been consistently knocking on the door, and you want that. And yeah, you get frustrated when they aren't able to bust it in, but in some ways, it's going to be like kind of a make or break year because, you're only getting older. Thankfully, Dallas does have, like I said, those young stars that are ready to take over this club, when, Jamie Benn and, Matt Duchene and other veterans are eventually, finally able to start moving on, and whatsoever, who are already in their later years. They've already got, some of those young players to become, the focal points that really they kind of already are.
Well, Eric, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on today. I really appreciate you carving out some time. The Stars and Kings had some really good games last year. There was one in LA in particular. I think the Kings won in a shootout, but it was just a great hockey game from two good teams. So hopefully we'll get a few more of those this year, and really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks, Eric.
Hey, thank you, guys. I appreciate it. I'd love to see a playoff series next April or May here.
Sam would too.
Stay away from Edmonton.
That's
huh?
right. Let's keep the Oilers out of it. Thanks, Eric, very much. There he goes. Eric Stevens from The Athletic. We will be talking with Zach Dooley from the Kings in just a moment here on DLLS.
But first, if you haven't heard it from me already, you're going to hear it one more time. What if I told you that the DLS Cowboys team is headed to Las Vegas with True Fan Travel for the ultimate fan experience? Right now, I believe they are in Oxnard, California for Cowboys training camp and covering the preseason. I've seen Clarence up there hanging out with the crew. They went to the Jerry Jones movie reveal in LA, the premiere. We got Brian Schottenheimer, the head coach.
You learned and remembered.
On our DLS show yesterday. Check that out if you didn't see it. Mr. Fourth and Long, Jesse Holly jumping on other podcasts. They're doing it all out there. They're living the dream, and they are not living in 100-degree temperature.
If you didn't hear Jesse joining the Dumb Zone yesterday or watched it, he was so entertaining.
He's hilarious.
Jesse has lived.
He's lived.
He's got some great stories.
Yep. I remember from the Christmas party, he got a couple of cocktails in him. But
you don't even need that. He'll tell you. Great
DLS is taking over the Strip for the ultimate unforgettable weekend in Vegas, and you need to be there. Join us as the Cowboys take on the Raiders. Just kidding. The Raiders on November 17th, Monday Night Football. This all-inclusive trip includes a 3-night stay at a luxury Vegas resort, game tickets, VIP parties, exclusive events with the DLS Cowboys crew, and fellow diehard fans, and much, much more. Maybe the DLS Stars crew will head on a trip sometime soon.
I mean, Send us to
Are
California.
you listening? We'll go to
You know the
California
area a little bit.
We'll
Let's
go
go
to
say hi to
we'll
our
go to the
friends in
beach.
Anaheim and LA.
Yeah, we'll go to the beach
Or Vegas, or
Hey,
all of them.
anywhere as
Yeah.
long as it's not summer.
Willing to travel.
Yeah. This is how Dallas does Vegas. So book now at truefantravel.com. We also have some awesome merchandise on our site, alldls.com. Like this shirt. This is one of the originals.
It's one of my favorites.
I
It's
think I have
classic.
2 of those somehow.
I have this one and the navy one.
Yeah, there's some cool ones.
No, I think I have the green one
There
too.
you go. You got all of them.
I like these flag shirts.
We
a
got our
lot.
classic shirts. We also have the new Dallas collection.
Sam is
which-
wearing shirts.
Yeah, this is yellow shirt today. The DLS collection. I've seen Luds rocks the Dallas versus all y'all, which is a great shirt. The mascot horror show, the Nolan Ryan,
Giving him just feeding him
the
right.
old school Mavs, the barbecue one that I have, and then I don't really know what the one in the top corner. What's this top corner supposed to be again?
That's Big Tex.
Big Tex. That's
Have
right.
you
I just
not
couldn't
been
remember
to
the
State
name.
Fair of
I
Texas?
couldn't remember the name.
Horny
Get
dogs.
out of town.
Come on, Fletchers.
Alldls.com. Do it all. Let's get back to the Kings.
Yeah, let's bring Zach on. Zach Dooley is the insider, Kings insider. His official title is the manager of editorial content, but we know he's the one that has all the secrets. Zach Dooley from the LA Kings joining us for the second half of the show. There he is. Hey, Zach, how you doing today?
What's up, fellas? I never expected to hear horny dogs in the sentence preceding my introduction, so thank you guys for that.
Well,
Welcome to DLS.
If you ever come to Dallas during the State Fair, you'd have to have a corny dog. They're a staple amongst the millions of different fried confections that they do.
Yeah.
And they change them every year. It's insane. It's like nothing you've ever seen. So if you like things deep fried that you don't necessarily think should be deep fried, come to Dallas during the State Fair of Texas.
Looking forward to that.
All right. So we talked to Eric just now, and I'm not going to make you go through the entirety of the playoff series with the Oilers again. But one thing he said, and I want to get the inside the team perspective, which you bring, which is, was last year's loss to Edmonton the worst of the 4 straight playoff losses to the Oilers, and why? Why was it so much more gut-wrenching for the fans and the team than the previous years?
I think by far it was. I think that the Kings won game 1. The Kings won game 2. The Kings led in the third period of games 3 and 4.
Oh,
and
game 3 hurt.
Game 3 hurt, but I think game 4 hurt more from being in the arena for it. And I think that if you look at 21, I thought that in game 4, the Kings played their best 2 periods that I've ever seen them play in the playoffs in that building. I thought the Kings were firmly in control of game 4, whereas game 3, they had to claw back from a few goals down. And it was kind of a weird game. I don't think game 3 impacted the team whatsoever.
Even with the coach's challenge?
I think that the coach's challenge was the wrong decision, certainly. But I think that by the time game 4 started, game 3 was an afterthought.
Yeah,
I don't think it mentally impacted the team at all. I think that game 4 hurt them in a number of ways. So to me, and I think that a lot of the fan base with the Kings probably disagrees. I think they all kind of point to that coach's challenge because it's the most glaring, maybe, mistake in that series by the Kings. But I really thought that the team reset after game 3. I thought they were firmly in position to win game 4, to head home up 3-1, which they had never been able to do against the Oilers before in the previous 3 years. And that, to me, was the one that really kind of stung.
See, the thing is that as much as I didn't like the challenge in game 3, what really hurt was that they scored, 10 seconds later on the next power play. If they had somehow survived that, everyone would have said, okay, well, you took a risk and it didn't burn you. It's fine. It was the compounding of already noticeable Oilers momentum. And we've seen it from the Stars' perspective when that building gets going and those players, especially McDavid and Draisaitl, Zach Hyman, when they're at full momentum, it's hard to stop. So, but I was saying this to Eric, and I'm curious your thoughts. Game 4, you're playing well, you have the lead. It kind of felt like the Kings sat back a little bit, and the back half of that series, because we saw LA take it to Edmonton. I said I wasn't going to make him go through the whole playoff series, and here we are. I'm sorry,
topic.
Zach. I can't help it. But it just felt like there was a bit of a prevent defense going on when you had the tactical and the on ice wherewithal to push them back.
I agree completely. And I thought the Kings they enforced the game on their terms in the first period and the second period. And I thought they completely controlled game 4 until the third period, when I agree that they sat back and, it wasn't coaching instruction. I think it was just this instinctual thing where the team sat back I would agree, was a prevent defense, and they led 3-1. Goal 2 against was a weird fluky deflection goal. And the tying goal came with like 30 seconds left, and it forced overtime. And not only, did the Kings sit back, but they played 3 lines in 4D. So by the time they got to overtime, I think the team was pretty gassed. So it kind of got them on 2 fronts, right? Like the prevent approach didn't work, and it got the game into OT. And then when the Kings got there, the Oilers were just by far the fresher team in that overtime. And it was kind of that doubling up of things that I thought made game 4 a lot harder to take than game 3.
All right, Zach, I'm going to take you in a completely different direction, which is a common theme with me. My questions, I'm just going to go a completely different direction.
Well, it's
anything
like
but talking about game 4 of that series.
It's like squirrel, right? Like
yeah.
Oh, over there.
I want to talk about something that was really, really impressive and interesting to me after the horrific fires and everything that happened last year. The Kings and I think the NHL and a few other people teamed up for, I believe it was called Skate for LA Strong. I think that was the term for it. I've just heard amazing things about that whole event across podcasts, across the NHL. I'd love to hear your perspective, how that all came together.
Boy, that was a right turn, wasn't it?
I was thinking about it all day. So I just would love to hear your perspective from in the team, how that all came together and how it went.
Yeah, it was really cool. Raised a lot of money for, the community, which really needed it. I think that when everything happened, everyone kind of got together on the leadership side with the Kings and said, like, how can we make a difference? And not just like a small difference. How can we, use our platform and our connections and our team being one of the teams that was in season to do something that was really cool, but also made like a financial impact on what was going on. And, LA is one of the only markets that could pull that together because of all these people are here, right? Like all these celebrities and actors and musicians, they're all here. And at that time, the community, LA is so big, but like everyone just rallied together, around helping people who were impacted by these fires. And, the Kings worked hand in hand with the NHL. A lot of help from the league for sure. A lot of work by a lot of people with the Kings. And it was a really special event, to see Vince Vaughn and Kobe Smulders on the bench, to see Danny DeVito on the bench, but also to see NHL legends, right? Like there were a lot of, really high-end players who were able to participate as well. It was a really cool event for sure. And most importantly, it was an event that I think made a difference at a really tough time.
You got a follow-up for that?
No.
You want me to go left turn now?
Yeah, let's go another wild one.
So I'm going to dive back toward this. So the playoffs are over. It's obviously festering a bit. Rob Blake resigns, or his contract runs out, or however that early May. About a week and a half later, Ken Holland is hired. And how much of the sort of driving factor of Ken Holland's job now as GM of the Kings is that you guys haven't won a playoff series since you won the Stanley Cup? Because I'm sure, and obviously 4 in a row against the Oilers hurts, 4 straight seasons, but 2014, you've won your second cup in 3 years. Peak of the franchise, really, I would think, of that Stanley Cup success. And I would imagine they're trying to get over that haven't won a playoff series in 10 years kind of hump.
August 14th, and I'm getting it thrown at me. The Kings haven't won a playoff series in 11 years. NHL Network freaking tweeted it last night. I was like, I don't need this on August 13th. Like, I don't need this.
He'll never agree to come on the show again.
Catching strays from NHL Network, the LA Kings. And first of all, do you know what me, you, and Ken Holland have in common?
Glens Falls, New York.
Glens Falls, New York, baby.
That's right.
He was GM of the Adirondack Red Wings back in
Jim
the day.
Nill, too, by the way. So, Zach, quick side note. When I was with the Texas Stars, so I had been and left the Adirondack Phantoms by, let's say 3 seasons. Jim Nill gave me an exit interview after my first year with the Texas Stars. I just happened to be down in our locker room, and he's there doing exit interviews, and he and Les Jackson pull me into a side room and sit down. And what does he do? He asked me about Davidson Brothers in Glens Falls.
Oh, baby.
What a guy. It was so much fun. But both of those guys, it's a neat town. My wife and I loved it there. We had our first kid there. And it's funny, for for not a very big place, it really leaves a mark on you, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, smallest market in minor league hockey. And I feel like anyone who was there, like, it's just an easy thing to talk about. Like, everyone's got memories from the Falls. Great spot.
Wouldn't mind being there right now with the weather in Dallas, but that's okay. So tell me what Ken Holland's doing with this sort of overview. First and foremost, how difficult is it to lose Vladislav Gavrikov from your blue line?
It's definitely hard. Drew Doughty missed the first 4 months of last year, and I would say that you could call Gavrikov the team MVP for how well that he not only stepped up onto a first pairing role, but went from the left side to the right side, and he's a left shot defenseman. He was the team's RD1 for most of the year, and he was very impactful for the team last year. I know there were negotiations. There was talk of trying to get him back. Didn't work out. And I don't think there was necessarily another defenseman out there who you could just one for one say, okay, we're replacing Gavrikov with player A. I don't think it necessarily worked that way. So I think what the Kings are really banking on here is, number one, that Drew Doughty comes back like Drew Doughty. Had the ankle injury last year, wasn't quite himself, was never at 100% last year. He should be for training camp, and that's really big. I think the Kings need a big step from Brandt Clarke, who flashed quite a bit, especially offensively as a rookie. I think his ceiling is very high, and I think the Kings are really banking on a player like him taking a pretty big step forward. And I think it's going to have to be like a Moneyball thing. You replace him in the aggregate. And, Drew Doughty, like, people are sleeping on Drew Doughty, I think, a little bit. I think they're a little bit down on him from last year. He was not 100%, but he was kind of still utilized in that 100% Drew Doughty role. When he's 100% from 21 to 24, those last 3 years, dude was a true number one defenseman. Like, he's still Drew Doughty, and I think that's kind of the key to really replacing what Gavrikov brought, is that Drew Doughty is Drew Doughty again, and I think that he will be.
I shouldn't have asked you the first blue line question right before our ad break. We have to take a quick break because there's a whole bunch more to ask about all of this stuff, and we'll do that with Zach and the Kings next here on DLLS. But first, it's not LA, but the Cowboys are in Oxnard, California. It's north of
LA County.
No, I think it's Ventura County.
Up there.
It's up near Ventura. It's in Oxnard,
okay.
And I believe that's. I mean, I'm not a California county expert, but
I stay south on the 5. Trying to get up to LA too much.
Yeah, you like to be down in Orange County, huh? Baby. Yeah, listen to this guy. Anyway. They're in California for training camp because why wouldn't you want to be there? The weather's idyllic. And because of that, we are running our DLS Diehard $36 training camp intro offer. As you can see on the screen, Sam showed you the QR code. He can point to it again right there below his laptop. Scan that. It'll take you to our website, alldlls.com, and you can get over 50% off the regular annual price of being a DLS Diehard. Yes, it says top-level access because you get access to everything that's written on our site. Sam and Sean for the Stars, Tim for the Mavs, Jeff for the Rangers, Clarence for the Cowboys. We've got you covered. And of course, you get so much more. How about a free t-shirt to go with your annual subscription? You signed up. You can get the Dallas collection is the most recent of the new ones. You can get something classic like mine, but look at those ones. You've got the Mavs with the little green hat. You've got the Dallas versus all y'all and the weird mascot one. Nolan Ryan feeding Robin Ventura is still my favorite. There's, yes, as Zach mentioned, corny dogs. It's the Big Tex one up in the top or right. And so many more, right? You've got the Otter shirt, the Finnish Mafia shirt, which is also one of the favorites out there, one of our best sellers. Whether it's Wyatt Johnston or Jamie Benn shirts, the Captain, the Moose, the Miko.
Get this yellow shirt at samnessler.com.
Any of the
Oxnard is nowhere near where I thought it was.
It will also get you access to our Diehard Only Discord channel, which is really a fun community with pages inside of that for each of the different sports and some other topics. The Stars Discord channel is off the hook, which sounds weird coming from me. But all right, let's bring Zach back on, who can tell Sam a little bit more about Southern California geography. But let's talk about Brandt Clarke for a minute. I'm glad you brought him up because his name was being floated out in the trade rumor mill last year, and I couldn't believe it was. And I'm wondering if there was actually the case or if it was just like Jason Robertson, where maybe a team shops to see where the valuation is, but they're not actually interested in moving him unless they get blown away. Because to us, and we've had this conversation on the show a bunch, it doesn't make any sense to get rid of Jason Robertson. He's one of the top goal scorers in the NHL, and he's still under control, and he's going to be, I think, for a long time. I would absolutely kill to get Brand Clark on the Dallas Stars. He's 22. He's a right shot defenseman. They have a lack of righties. He seems like he has a huge ceiling. You talked about him maybe taking his step. Was there any actual worry that he might get traded last year?
I don't think there was very much to it, to be honest. I mean, you saw the name out there. I think it was kind of coincidental that the Kings did scratch him for a couple of games in late February. And anytime a young player on a team that's trying to contend scratches a young player 10 days before the trade deadline, stuff heats up, right? You're like, oh, they're obviously trading him. Well, I don't think the Kings had any intention of trading anyone from the trio of Byfield, LaFerriere, or Clark. That was kind of the three, relatively untouchable list. Now, if a guy like Mikko Rantanen was on the table, you probably can't get that player without giving up one of those guys, right? You have to give to get, but it wasn't like the Kings were never going to just trade Brant Clark for a draft pick. Never, ever going to happen.
And that was the Logan Stankoven thing with the Stars.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, right? You don't get Mikko Rantanen to Dallas without giving up a stud. And Logan Stankoven's a really good player. You have to give up somebody good.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there was much whatsoever to the Clark rumors. But people need something to talk about. And it kind of made some situational sense, right? With him missing a couple of games.
All right, Zach, I grew up in a town called Chatham, New Jersey. 2 players that play in the
Here
NHL.
we go.
Grew up in a town called Chatham, New Jersey. Drew O'Connor with the Penguins and Alex LaFerriere, who you just mentioned. Drew O'Connor did not play at my high school. So as far as I know, the only guy ever to make it from Chatham High School to the NHL is Alex LaFerriere. That's interesting enough to me to ask about. But he also happens to be an impactful player. But that's the interesting thing. I'm not just asking about a guy who's never going to make it to the league and he's on the AHL team. LaFerriere came in and he had some expectations, but I don't know how many people believed he was going to be a true top 6 20-goal scorer. What have you seen from him since he's come in and his development?
You ever just watch a guy and you're like, that dude's a player?
Yeah.
Yep.
That dude's a player. He does so many things well. I don't think he's going to be a 40-goal scorer, but he's going to be that guy who is the last guy that you put into your lineup because he can play any role with any players. And no matter who you put him with in the top 9, he's probably going to be a 20-plus goal guy, guaranteed just about every year. His analytical chance creation metrics were off the charts good, was actually one of the better players in the league, hit a massive slump goal-scoring-wise in the second half of the year, but his underlying numbers were actually better than they were when he was putting the puck in the net. So it showed that he was still getting the chances. He was still creating offense. He was just not getting the luck offensively. So I think really, really highly of Alex LaFerriere. He signed a 3-year deal recently to keep him with the Kings, still under team control after that. I think that he and the Kings see him as a long-term cornerstone type player here. And I think that he just does so many things well that he's going to have a really long NHL career from your high school.
And that's interesting you said that because he played 77 games and you just said it. He had a huge slump. The fact that the guy has a huge slump and still has 19 goals and 42 points, that seems like no one really knows what his ceiling is, right?
Yeah, I think he's a guy who's going to be in that 20-30 goal range pretty much every year, but he does the other things well. He's willing to get into battles. He'll play well defensively. With the Kings, you got to play 2 ways if you're going to be a forward for the Kings. He clicked well with Byfield and Fiala on a line that I think has the potential to be the top offensive line for the Kings, but he's played with Kopitar and Kempe as well, and I think he could fit with Danault if the Kings wanted to go that route too. He's just one of those dudes who you could plug him in pretty much anywhere, and you're going to get the exact same level of production, and I think that's such a valuable thing to have.
I don't know if I'm not going to get to all these things. There's too many good things to talk about.
We can talk about Chatham more.
No, I promise you that's not on my list. But Zach, I didn't get a chance to ask Eric this, and I have to bring him up because if we go through on an hour about the Kings and we don't mention Quentin Byfield, that would be a mistake. He's only 22, but he seems like he's poised to be. This is a real hard fastball, so get ready. I'm grooving this one. it seems like he's poised to be a superstar. And for people that don't see him because he's in LA and, maybe you're not staying up late on the East Coast to watch a West Coast game, what are people that are unfamiliar with Quinton Byfield not aware of?
There are very few players in the NHL who are 6'5" who skate the way that Quinton Byfield does. Like, he's a freak athletically, like you just don't have guys of that size who move the way that Quinton Byfield does. I think, my lights in my office just went out, but it was that heater that Owen threw that it just,
Chin music
broke the fuses here. Yeah, exactly. Spooked him a little bit. I was scared of that Nolan Ryan, Robin Ventura thing going on.
That's right. Just
heard all about the shirts. Like QB, like I think he is poised to explode. If you look at his numbers from February 1st through the end of the year, he was, I think, 30 from 31. He was a point per game or like 1 point away from a point per game. That was the date that they paired Byfield with Fiala and Laferriere. And if you look at both Fiala and Byfield from that point on, both players exploded offensively, and they kept that going into the playoffs. That is the pairing that's going to work for both of those guys. And it didn't work at the start of last year. It was Byfield's first year back at center. He moved to the wing for a couple of years, went back to the middle last year. He really struggled offensively early in the year, but he grew as a center. He grew defensively. His faceoffs got better. His shutdown ability was there. And then in February through April, it all came together. The offense came. He was scoring, bunch of goals, bunch of assists, very impactful player. And I think very highly of Quinton Byfield. I think that his path is maybe more like a Tage Thompson type than you would think of like a second round. Like, you always think these second overall picks are going to be like Jack Eichel or Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid. And if they aren't there at 19, they're a bust. He's a big dude, and big dudes take a little bit of time sometimes. And I look at Tage Thompson, not that they're comparable players, but they're comparable in stature. And it took Tage Thompson a long time to become Tage Thompson. I don't think they're the same player, but I do think the trajectory could be there, where it took Quinton longer to get there than you'd expect from a guy picked second overall. I think he is primed to break out and put it all together over 82 games. So I'm really, really excited to see what he could do this year.
Okay, we're getting very short on time, so I have to ask you a quick one, and then Sam has the one we have to ask you about. Go to the other end of the age spectrum. How is Anze Kopitar still doing this as a mutant at 37, just like Doughty at 35? These guys are defying the age limits here in the NHL.
I don't know, man. If I knew how he is so much more productive in his life than me, despite being older, I would love to know his wisdom, right? Like, he is unbelievable what he's able to do. Intelligence wise, like, there's no one like him. Like, he is just so smart, so dedicated, such a good teammate and a good person on top of it. It's been an honor to be able to be around him and just watch how he operates for as long as I have, trying to enjoy it, while he's still around. At some point, he's going to hang him up. But the thing with him is, like, he's going to go at a high level, like, he's still producing the same 60, 70 points that he always has, while getting votes for the Selke, while matching up, while killing penalties, while doing all these things. He's just so well-rounded as a player that I don't know what his secret is. I wish that I did, but he is just so impressive to watch operate day to day.
All right, Zach, last question for you. From an LA perspective, what do you see out of the Dallas Stars heading into 2025-26 and their potential?
So, man, like, I travel full-time with the Kings, and I have been to the American Airlines Center 6 times, and I have seen 6 Dallas Stars wins. So I am never seen a Kings win in that building. I picked the Stars last year to go to the Cup from the West. I thought they were the deepest team. I thought 1 through 9 especially, there was no team that matched up with Dallas. I'm always a big believer. I look at their offseason, and the depth is not what it was, right? Like, you had to move on from, Granlund's no longer there, Marshman's not there anymore. But I think it's kind of that year where that group of guys who are like 24, 25, the Johnsons, the Hints, the Robertsons, like, if that group can carry the team the way that I think they're capable of, I would have no hesitation in picking them again to be the team that comes out of the West. Just I'm a very big fan of the way that Dallas plays. I love how they draft and develop. Like all those guys, forwards and defensemen, are homegrown, and that's key. So I will probably pick Dallas to come out of the West again. I just really like the way that team's built.
Well, Zach, we will see you in Dallas October 23rd. Early. It'll probably still be hot here. I hope your record continues unblemished. But seriously, thank you so much for joining us today. Always great to catch up with you. We should go to Rock Hill Bakehouse and get a cookie or lunch at some point if we either end up that way. But seriously, really appreciate you carving out some time today. It's been great.
Thanks a lot, Zach.
Of course, yeah. Thanks, guys, for having me on.
There's Zach Dooley. Check him out on lakings.com because he is phenomenal at what he does. And that's it for another day.
My leg's asleep.
Winnipeg tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
We got a special show tomorrow as far as time frame. We're actually going to be on at 11 a.m. We had to move because the Cowboys are out west, to accommodate one of our guests, Andrew Hustler Patterson, who's the host of Winnipeg Sports Talk, our YouTube show up in Winnipeg. We're going to talk about the Jets. You know that playoff series is going to be full front focus. We're also going to have Mike McIntyre, who is the beat writer for the Jets for the Winnipeg Free Press. So a big show. Sean will be here. Sam and I will be here. And of course, Elijah won't be because it's Friday. So Kat will be at the helm, which means she'll probably find a drop or two for us. But big thank you to Elijah, to Sam, and of course to our guests, both Eric Stevens from The Athletic and Zach Dooley from the LA Kings. I'm Owen. Hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Early show, 11 a.m. right here on DLS.
We all silly like the mayor.